So Garrett Nussmeier, much expected of him as a Heisman favorite of sorts. And he's banged up a bit with the knee issue. And now we hear Michael Van Buren's got a hand injury. So how much do you know about the quarterback health at this point?
Yeah, Van Buren will be fine, and Garrett Nussmeier will be fine. In fact, he has still looked amazing in practice, and that's not only the media version of practice, that's also behind closed doors. And the truth is, if Garrett really was hurt, like hurt, since this story has been out, the guys out west would have already known, and they would have taken the number off the board. And Mark, you know that better than anyone when it comes to sports betting. So Garrett is fine. The question will be, will he be fine versus this Clemson defensive line? LSU is starting to get a little bit more solidified on their front. Brian Kelly officially announced 2 starters in their official spots. Tyree Adams at left tackle and Braylon Moore at center. He also said earlier today that transfer Josh Thompson will start at one of the guard spots. More than likely, that's going to be right guard. So left guard and right tackle still need to get sorted out before this big game versus, to me, the best defensive line LSU will play this year.
And that's with an SEC schedule. So that's a pretty bold statement right there. The Clemson situation on the defensive side of the ball is a bit curious to me because when you look at the names, the individual names, and you see their NFL projections, and you know how productive they've been in college, it's a star-studded group starting with Peter Woods, and we could go right down the line. However, 85th in rush defense last year against a fairly weak schedule. We know LSU had a little semblance of a running game, and really hasn't had that star-studded running attack in recent years. So can this LSU running game 2025 maybe take advantage of what has been a porous Clemson rush defense?
Yeah, and that's a weird thing about this matchup, Mark, is when you look at last year and you looked at LSU's offensive line, you would have thought that they would have been one of the better rushing attacks in all of college football for their 5 starters getting drafted. And, well, they were not that. It was a very clunky run game. And the opposite is also true. When you look at Clemson's defensive front, Mark, you thought that would have been one of the most ferocious run-stopping units. We all remember Dexter Lawrence of yesteryear, and it's not been that. So that is really strange. The only problem for LSU is that they are replacing pretty much their entire offensive line, and Clemson is returning most of their defensive line. And with Clemson being at home, it's going to be very difficult to run the football. The issue, though, from Clemson's vantage point, and this is a big positive for LSU, is Caden Durham is the real deal. I think he's probably nationally the most underrated player on this LSU team. I really do think he has first-team All-SEC potential. He's pretty much been on everybody's second or third team. He's big time. You look at some of the sports books, they have him as the odds-on favorite to be the leading rusher in the SEC, and that's impressive considering Garrett Nussmeier likes to actually throw the football most of the time. So, for me, I think Caden Durham is going to be a tough matchup for this Clemson front, and I think he's actually going to have a good day.
Got Carter here breaking down the LSU Tigers. Of course, they've got a huge one on opening weekend against Clemson on the road, and opening weekend has not been kind, of course, to Brian Kelly.